And welcome into the Wednesday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Robby Stanley alongside Nick Keiser. Joe Rexrode will be along shortly here on the program. We got a lot to get into today on the program. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com will be with us at 8 o'clock, potentially before. We'll see what happens. PK was tweeting last night. Number one, his Yankees remain alive in the World Series, down 3-1, but they get the win last night. They avoid elimination. So we'll have Kuharski on the program a little bit later in the show. Nick Keiser, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Yeah, doing well. Got a little bit of good night's sleep last night, having no hockey game, but hey, we're back in action Thursday. So looking forward to being back down at Bridgestone Arena.
Yeah, back in action on Thursday against the Edmonton Oilers. And as we talked about yesterday, doesn't look like Connor McDavid going to be in that game
Does not
either.
look like it.
So obviously, you want to see Connor McDavid healthy for the good of the game. But good news for the Predators, now I have to play Connor McDavid.
Hey, but if you're Barry Trotz, you're more worried about Ekholm, Draisaitl, a couple other guys too.
Yeah, they still got some good players on that team. So we'll see how the Preds respond to that coming up tomorrow. Kuharski will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll have The Choice Is Yours coming up at 6:30 on the program here today as well. Taking your thoughts in the meantime on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. We encourage your participation as always. Some interesting news in the AFC South yesterday. I did not have this one on the bingo card this early, but some interesting news from the Indianapolis Colts. We talked about the Anthony Richardson thing yesterday of him taking himself out of the game and him coming out for a play, and it was 3rd and goal from like the 23-yard line, and he taps out. Joe Flacco comes in, and Anthony Richardson has just been getting crushed for taking himself out of the game. Over the last couple of days, we play the audio from Get Up on ESPN. Well, the Colts announcing yesterday that Joe Flacco is the quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts this week. Anthony Richardson to the bench. Joe Flacco, now the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. We bring Joe Rexrode into the program. Joseph, what did you make of that from the Colts? Flacco, now the starting quarterback in Indianapolis.
Well, my initial reaction is it's just so stupid. And it's what we've talked about here. But to me, it's even. Well, look, I understand. Like they technically can they have what are they 4-3 right now? Is that right?
Maybe
Or are they 4-4?
I think 4-4.
They're 4-4 after the loss of Houston. Yeah, they're fighting for a playoff spot, but like the big picture of that organization, and here's the thing: the big picture of like obviously Chris Ballard's job. If Anthony Richardson is a flop, he's done. I mean, everybody knows this, right? Like
I would think.
Yeah, it's just hard to imagine anything otherwise. So, I mean, one of the things I thought of is this another case of an owner overstepping? I mean, I have to think along those lines. Then you have the whole, okay, it's just like the tap out was so bothersome to the locker room that it's like, like that has something to do with it. James Boyd, friend of the show, my coworker, the Athletic, said, he cited a source that said that's zero to do with it. It's just that he's not playing well. And also, like they don't intend for this to be it for him, usually, or in most cases, when you get to this point, that is it. But I mean, they can't be it. It's 10 games, right? 10 games.
Yes.
So I just think it's dumb, but I guess if it's like a game or two reset, then okay. But the bottom line is that guy has to play, and yeah, he's not playing well. And then the tap out thing was bizarre, but Joe Flacco. What is Joe Flacco going to do for you if you're the Indianapolis Colts? Like, what are you realistically going to do this year with Joe Flacco? Nothing.
No, I mean, look, I don't know. Could you hang around and get to like 9-8 and give yourself a chance to maybe make a wild card spot? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. But like,
how is that more important than him, though?
That's the thing. Like, it's Stephen Holder, friend of the show, was talking about this yesterday. Like, who's going to be the quarterback for the Colts in 2025? mean, we think it's Anthony Richardson, but I mean, this move signals to me that I don't know that. I don't know. I mean, look, Richardson, and we can go back to the draft process on this. Like, I never really understood it. He didn't play very well in college, save for like a couple games, but the physical traits were off the charts, which is why he got drafted where he got drafted, right? Like, he had legitimately like the greatest NFL combine day for a quarterback of all time. So when you have the traits that he brings to the table, I think you had to know with him really more so than all these other ones that we're talking about. We're going to get into Bryce Young and Will Levis and all that stuff. But with him, even I think more so, Joe, he was so raw that I said at the time he would be a perfect candidate to like sit and learn and not be on the field because he's not ready to be an NFL quarterback. And he's still not close to being ready to be an NFL quarterback. Now, you've played him at this point. So what's the best way to go about it? I mean, if you feel like he needs to play to get better, that's fine. But you're talking about a guy that with the injuries last year and already an injury situation this year, he's played 10 games in the NFL. He's 22. Like the idea that, and I know the Colts are saying the right things, right? Like all this stuff came out in Indianapolis, like the story's going to be that we're moving on from Anthony and we're not moving on from Anthony. And if he handles this the right way, and maybe that's true. I don't know. All I know is this. It's a bad look from Indianapolis of 10 games into this guy's career. You're looking around and you're saying, yep, we feel good about Joe Flacco being our guy moving forward here. I just don't really understand it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. I do like it. It's I can't imagine that in that building they're like, oh yeah, that's just it, because like again, if that's what they're saying, then they're also saying, okay, so what do you think my next job's going to be? What's your next job going to be? Let's keep in touch, okay? Let's share contact info here because we're about to be fired. I mean, so they have to be planning to go back to him. The question is when and how and all that stuff. So it makes it a different kind of situation. I guess you could argue, like you said, Robby, 10 games. So I guess you could argue, okay, so this is them going back and saying, yes, we screwed it up. He should have sat last year. So this is still within he hasn't started a full season's worth of games. So now we're going to just go back and have a do-over and let him sit and watch Joe Flacco for a while. I mean, so then it gets to, it's pretty simple if like they lose enough, which I think they will. If they lose enough and Flacco's fine, but and then it gets to a point where it's like, okay, now he's had a few weeks, go back to him. And then it really is just about him. But what if Flacco wins,
Yeah.
Then you can't, then the guys on the team are like, what are you doing? We bust our butt. Again, it's the same thing with these like we have the discussion here with Levis. It's like, we bust our butt and we're trying to win football games. And we are doing it with this guy. Now you're going to pull the rug out on that? That's where it could get tricky.
Well, I talked about it yesterday. Their next 4 games in Indianapolis. You're at Minnesota coming up this week. Then you're at home against Buffalo. On the road against the Jets, which it looks like a Sunday night broadcast, I think. So yay to all of us to be able to watch that. And then you're home against the Lions. That's your next 4 games. Vikings, Bills, Jets, and Lions. So with the exception of the Jets there, who are not good, those are 3 really good teams otherwise, Minnesota, Buffalo, and Detroit, that you're going to have to deal with over the next 4 weeks if you're the Colts. Now, look, maybe they sneak up and win 1 or 2 of those games, but if you lose 3 out of those 4, at least, Joe, and you're talking about 5-7 at that point, maybe 4-8 if it goes really bad. So, I mean, we could be in a situation here where they go back to Anthony Richardson relatively quickly in the timeline here. Just the timing of it is interesting. And my first reaction when I saw this yesterday, Joe, was, is this like punishment from the staff for what Richardson did in the game? And like saying, hey, you can't do this. And to get this message through your head that you can't do this, we're going with Flacco. I mean, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense the more you really think about it. But that was my first reaction to this yesterday when I saw the news.
Yeah, it's a natural reaction to have. Now, it would be even dumber than the Colts usually are if that's the case, for them to look at it that way. But it's also, I I have to think somewhere in all the discussion, the tap out has to be in there, right? I know that they told Boyd and Holder and everybody it's 0, and I'm sure it's not the main thing. The main thing is, I mean, his inefficiency, right? He's under
been
50%.
horrible.
Yeah. I mean, he's missing. He makes a handful of throws that like very few people can make. So like he's tantalizing as a talent. There's no doubt. But yeah, he's just missing stuff that you can't miss over and over again. And so that's the main thing. But I also can't buy that like the tap out wasn't like if you're talking about sitting a guy down, that would be a good example of. And then like the other day when he pulled himself, from the drive because he was winded, like I mean that has to be at least mentioned, right?
Yeah. Lenny on the text line. Looks like the ball just didn't bounce Anthony Richardson's way in this situation. Well done, Lenny.
Nice.
Ball not bounce. I feel like that's going to be something that we just really have a lot of fun with from now on as Tennessee Titans observers and fans.
I think the ball not bouncing your way, it could be the new collaboration.
Yeah, it absolutely could. Wes in Clarksville says, crazy how the AFC South was supposed to have these great quarterbacks, and now there's only one that's playing decent, referring to C.J. Stroud. I mean, I thought about this yesterday. Anthony Richardson to the bench. Now we'll see if they eventually go back to him. Bryce Young has already been benched this year. And, Andy Dalton got in the car accident last week, so Bryce Young got back out there. I have no idea what the Carolina Panthers plan is at quarterback this week, but did not have Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson being benched before Will Levis, Joe Rexrode, but that's the world we live in right now.
That is true. Although some people in this town think Will Levis has been 100% healthy the whole time. So
there is that.
Maybe
they're all benched.
Well, there was actually, I'm trying to find it. There was someone had the full. I mean, there is a bigger story here, which is the rushing of quarterbacks into the league, the rushing of quarterbacks who get in the league onto the field, and the rushing of quarterbacks the hell out of town. Right?
We're going to get into all that too.
It's a crisis in the NFL. Okay, yeah, I got this. So that's a good thing. We can go through this list.
Yep, we're going to get into that. We'll get into more of that coming up next. We're going to get into that throughout the 7 o'clock hour as well. Anthony Richardson to the bench in Indianapolis. We'll take your reaction to that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll have the choice is yours coming up at 6:30. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 the game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We're live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. We're taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got the choice is yours coming up at 6:30. We'll take your participation on that as well. Anthony Richardson to the bench in Indianapolis, which means he's been benched this year. Bryce Young has been benched this year. There are some people that think that Will Levis was benched. I don't think that's actually happened yet, but who knows? Maybe that'll happen at some point too. Joe, you had a chart, a tweet, a something that highlights the quickness that these quarterbacks are being tossed in there, and in some cases, just discarded left and right in the National Football League.
Yeah, Sam Block of ESPN. Not familiar with him, but Anthony Richardson is 22 benched. Bryce Young is 23 benched. Trey Lance is 24 benched. Justin Fields is 25 benched. He says Will Levis is 25 benched. He's wrong, but that is probably what the league thinks, right?
Does anybody watch Titans?
Yeah, well, at this point, I don't think anybody's complaining about that. Yeah. He continues. Zach Wilson is 25 benched. Mac Jones is 26 benched. Kenny Pickett is 26 benched. So there's a good, Levis could be, well, first of all, Richardson isn't there. I don't even know what is going on with Bryce Young. I have no idea.
He could be playing this week. I have no clue.
Yeah, but there's 8 guys right there who very recently were high picks. In fact, I think all of those guys, other than Levis, were very high picks.
Yes.
Right? Yes. All of those guys were very high picks other than Levis, and he was still at the top of the second round, and all of them to different degrees have been given up on. And now there's a counter tweet from somebody here who lists all the, Caleb Williams is 22, starter, et cetera, CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels, but of course you've got like Brock Purdy, you're Mr. Irrelevant, Bo Nix, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love. Now Jordan Love is, as we've talked about, there's your example of a guy who actually got to sit and got the benefit of that. Jalen Hurts also got that, not to the same extent, but got that, right? And on down the list. So, and Lamar Jackson got that too. Lamar Jackson got basically most of a year with Flacco starting, and then started to take over late in the season. And then of course the offense totally changed. So the bottom line is the more recent guys, has just been this trend of, and I saw somebody talking about this yesterday from the college perspective, which is that some people are telling college quarterbacks, like, don't, I know the idea is get in that league, get there when the clock starts, as soon as you can get there. If you're going to get drafted, go. It's hard to tell anybody don't go. Yeah. Like Anthony Richardson, a lot of people said, dude, you need to play it you need to start another full year in college. But it's like, well, he's going to go high in the draft. How do you tell him not to go? But here's the thing. The argument for it is, well, now you can make pretty good freaking money in college.
Yeah.
And you can have that year, and then you are more ready when you get into the league to stick, and if you rush it and go and you're one of those raw prospects, which does not, obviously, like Levis is not an example of that, right? But Richardson's a prime example of that.
Yes, he's the example of that.
And Bryce Young too. Bryce Young was polished, but he was still 3 years and out, right?
Yeah.
Then then maybe there's a case. Now, I wasn't saying that about Bryce Young at all, and so, but Richardson is the prime example of, like that year in college and Florida, you would have been paid well at Florida. Maybe you'd be in a better situation right now. And I do think that maybe we see some decisions along those lines from college quarterbacks. Especially if the money is going to be, what about Nico? What if Nico is still pretty raw next year, but he's starting to look like a prospect, right? You could make the case, hey man, you spread that out, still $2 million a year at Tennessee, and then maybe you're a little more ready in the draft of 2027 as opposed to the draft of 2026.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a conversation moving forward. And look, it's not revisionist history on this show. I said at the time, like, Anthony Richardson needs to go back and play another year of college football. Now, it's, again, to your point, like, it's hard to argue against it because he went 4th overall, right? Like, how much better are you going to go in the draft than 4th overall if he returned back to Florida? So I get it. Like, I understand why he went. But, like, that kid needed to play more in college football, and he just was not ready for the NFL. And I do think the Colts made a mistake throwing him out there as quickly as they did. And now I'm really interested to see how they handle it. This has become, Joe, I think, the most difficult question in the NFL to answer. And it's how long do you wait on your quarterback, right? I think it's the most difficult question in the entire league to answer because we've gone through examples all year long, whether it's Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield or Geno Smith, whoever, like, right? Guys that were drafted relatively high that did not work out in their first stops, that were given up on, that have returned to play good football to this point. Obviously, like Sam Darnold was discarded pretty quickly with the New York Jets. Baker's a little bit different. I mean, he did go win a playoff game in Cleveland, which the more distance you get away from that, the more it seems like a miracle with that place. But it's the question that I think is so difficult to answer in the NFL. How long do you wait on your quarterback? Because look, you went through that list, right, of Fields on the bench and Bryce Young on the bench and Richardson, all these different things. That's a lot of high picks there. Some of those guys just aren't good, right? Like some of those guys, regardless of how many different chances they get and how many different stops they go to, it just ain't going to work. Like some of those guys just aren't good. Some of those guys may a couple of years down the road turn into good players in the NFL. I think it's the most difficult question in the entire league right now to answer. And some people answer it correctly. And Joe, some people, it's going to cost them their job answering it the wrong way too soon.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all different types of situations of why you give up. Like, I think Baker, I still believe that Baker would have entrenched himself if he just wasn't so hurt that last year. And he was bad, but he was hurt, so it's like, well, good for you for playing through that, but he didn't play well. Yeah, some of those guys, like I think Justin Fields, I think we've seen with Pittsburgh this year, it's like it's just not quite. It's just it's just a little bit slow. Daniel Jones the same way. Watch Daniel Jones and Justin Fields play. It's like they're a half second late so often that they miss plays that should be gimmies.
Yeah.
And it's just, and on that list of quarterbacks, like I don't think we're ever going to see Mac Jones. I just don't think he's good.
I don't think he's either.
But I'm not totally sold that Kenny Pickett is trash. You go back to him in college and even how he looked at times, then he just whatever, it all went south on him.
Have his hands grown?
That's a good question. And maybe that's the cold key here. Get some hand growth ointment. But seriously, like in a couple of years, I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of those guys who emerges somewhere. And honestly, you may laugh at this, but I think Zach Wilson still has a ton of talent, just like Sam Darnold, who now has kind of figured it out. I'm not totally convinced that he won't, figure it out at some point.
I'll tell you, will
he get a chance? You don't always get a chance.
I don't know if he's going to get a chance. I do think he's got a lot of talent, and I'll say this. And you saw it with Darnold, and you saw it with Geno Smith, right? Like Darnold didn't work out with the Jets. Geno Smith didn't work out with the Jets. And now maybe it's just the Jets, right? Like how much of it is just the Jets or an absolute dumpster fire of play? I don't know. Like Zach Wilson may just be horrendous. I have no idea. But I'm just saying the Jets don't exactly have the most sparkling track record of developing young quarterbacks.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Ken O'Brien was quite a while ago. Yeah, another thing that always comes out during this, and I mean, look, I talk about it for sure, but like the Josh Allen comparisons, of course, right, are always going to be. So there's like graphics out on that, right? Like Richardson and like his first 10 games, and then compare that to Josh Allen's rookie year when Josh Allen played 12 games, and the numbers are basically. Yeah, the rating is like 68.8 for Richardson and 67.9 for Allen. It's like 10 TDs and 12 picks for Allen, 7 and 8 for Richardson. They're both at like 50% basically completion. I mean, like we've talked about Josh Allen. But the thing is, I still think Josh Allen is going to be that outlier. Like how many people are we ever going to remember who looked so bad? Yeah, maybe your guy Jordan Love, had he played all his rookie year, he could have been a similar kind of story.
Yeah,
because those brief glimpses were pretty bad, and now look at him; he's a great player. Josh Allen was just so bad, and I still am just amazed at how it worked out for him. He's going to be that comparison to all these guys who get who get benched or just struggling. But I also think he's just going to be an outlier.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get back into this conversation in the 7 o'clock hour. I think it's one of the most important conversations in the NFL right now. How long is too long to wait on your quarterback? And how does that impact what the Tennessee Titans do at the quarterback position as well? We'll get into that a little bit later in the program. The choice is yours. Coming up next, this is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
We all have choices to make. Like right now. It's The Choice Is Yours. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
It is that time of the week. Time for The Choice Is Yours here on Robby and Rexrode. 2 sports questions, 2 non-sports questions. We'll take your participation, as always, on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. I'm in charge of questions today. Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser. Would we like to begin with sports or non-sports?
Let's go sports.
Sports. All right. Let's just pick up on this quarterback conversation. You're a general manager. You were in charge to make a decision for the Titans at quarterback this offseason. But
Jared.
I am limiting you to these 5 quarterbacks. I'm doing this for a reason. But these 5 quarterbacks, I am limiting your options to. You can pick one of Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, Will Levis, Zach Wilson, or Trey Lance. You got to pick one of those 5 to ride with at quarterback moving forward. Which guy you going with? Richardson, Bryce Young, Will Levis, Zach Wilson, or Trey Lance?
Okay. I'll go. I'll be consistent. Honestly, my top 2 are one of them. I'm very close to saying Richardson. And
Okay.
again, I mean, at this point, I still would not bet on him, being great, but I still think that it's very early and it was a very bad idea to start him right away. And he's very talented, but I'll stay consistent and go with Bryce Young. It's funny because I actually watched a fair amount of Panthers Broncos. He didn't look terrible. His numbers ended up okay. But then at times, it's not great with him. I still think that it was not a mirage what we saw in college, but obviously none of those. I mean, that's a great question because none of them are.
It's not going well for any of them.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go Bryce.
All right, Richardson, Young, Levis, Zach Wilson, or Trey Lance. Nick Keyser, you got to ride with one of them.
I know. This is tough. I think giving Zach Wilson another fresh start would be an admirable thing to do. I think he was decent at times in New York.
He looked great against the Titans.
Yeah. I mean, hey, he certainly did. He had flashes of greatness. I think if he was under the right system, the right coaching staff, I think he could thrive. I think there's times when he looked like he could be something decent.
Very limited times, but there were times.
I know, but AR is not impressive to this point. Obviously being benched, he's going to have a big offseason. I heard Canty talking about this morning how he's got to be the most conditioned guy on the Colts going into next season. I couldn't agree more. But I think that for Zach, I could see him maybe pop off if he gets a fresh start.
I mean, the real answer is I don't love any of these options, nor would anybody else, which is why I asked the question. I'd probably go Richardson from the standpoint of 2 things. Number 1, he's still really, really young. I think he's 22 years old. And number 2, I think his physical capabilities supersede all those other ones. I know Zach Wilson's got a big arm, and he made a nice throw at the NFL Combine, but Anthony Richardson's physical ability and his age would probably make me choose him in this discussion, but I would not feel great about any of it. I don't know if any of those guys are going to be starting level NFL players moving forward. I mean, Trey Lance, I have no idea about. Trey Lance, he's barely played in the regular season, Joe. And then he gets in the preseason last year or this year, and he throws for like 380 yards and also throws like 6 interceptions in a game. Like it's wild with that guy at quarterback.
Well, some Cowboys fans would like to see him.
Yeah. Hey, his contract's coming up, baby. He'll be available this offseason, which is also part of why I asked this question. So will Zach Wilson.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And I wouldn't bet on any of them, but Richardson is still the most hope, I think.
All right, non-sports. You got to go hand-to-hand combat with one of Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, or Freddy Krueger. Which one are you choosing? You got to do it. Hand-to-hand combat with one of those 3 villains in Halloween time. Which one are you choosing?
Now you go.
I'm going Jason. Michael Myers is too big. He's a big dude. Freddy Krueger's got the claws, and I don't want any part of the claws. So I'll take my chances with Jason. Hopefully, like the goalie mask, blocks his vision a little bit. I think you're probably in big trouble going hand-to-hand combat with any of those three. Doesn't typically work out well for people who try to do it in the movies, but Jason would probably be the one I'd choose. Throw him in the lake.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go Jason too. I mean, crack the goalie helmet, get him to where he can't see much. It's an easy win at some point in time.
Is
If you can get to him compared to what you said about Freddy Krueger's claws, yeah, like I'm not going up against that. There's no way.
I mean, Michael Myers doesn't move very fast.
No,
there's
he
that
definitely
too.
doesn't. I did hear a trivia question last night, Joe. This might help influence a little bit. We were at an establishment, and the question was, if you had to hide from Michael Myers, would you go to a closet, under the bed, or the basement? So, and most people picked under the bed. So there you go.
Interesting. Yeah, this is a tough one. I'm with you on Freddie. Like there's no chance. You have no chance hand to hand. And yes, I'd probably try to run from Michael because you're right. He just lumbers, although he ends up finding where you are. But
He does.
yeah, I'll probably do the same thing. I mean, we're basically as a show saying Jason is soft,
Yeah.
which is not advisable. But I think that's got to be the answer. Give it a shot.
Robby and Rexrode collectively not scared of Friday the 13th. That's what we've learned on the program here today.
Like, we've been ripping those movies quite a bit lately, actually.
Yeah, we actually have. All right, you can take this answer any way you want to go. You could go physically imposing. You could go pure skill. But in honor of Halloween, who is the scariest player in sports? The scariest player in sports. I can start if you guys need time to think about it.
Sure.
I think
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going McDavid just because I think his speed that he brings to the table, like one-on-one, I think you just have no chance against Connor McDavid. There's a bunch of different ways you could go with it, but I think you can see NHL defenders at time when they look up and they realize that it's 97 that's coming their way. You can see them like in their face being like, "Oh God, this is not going to go well." So I'll go McDavid.
Yeah, I think anytime I watched football growing up, and especially when they played the Titans, it was more highlighted for me to just pay closer attention to this guy. But Ray Lewis absolutely is someone that stands out for me.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
His rivalry with Eddie George as well really stands out. And yep, he's a menacing guy. Plays through a bunch of injuries as well late in his career with his triceps, I believe. Right. So yeah, he persevered through pretty much everything humanly possible as an NFL athlete. So yeah, I'd say Ray Lewis.
Okay, so we're doing all time.
You get whatever you want. Yeah, all time.
Okay, because I was gonna say currently I was gonna go TJ Watt. I just think he's a freaking missile, who just is unblockable. But I mean, if we're gonna go all time, then I'll have the same idea and just go with LT. I mean, LT was just absolutely the most unblockable, most dominant defensive player. And Reggie White is right there, by the way.
Yeah.
But I saw LT just a little bit scarier.
Liam giving a vote for the Titans right tackle as the scariest position or scariest person in sports.
Nice.
On the text.
Nice.
Very well done. All right. Final question, non-sports. Who would be the first radio personality here at 102.5 The Game to die in the horror movie? Again, it's a movie. It's not real life. But we know how these horror movies work. A lot of them follow a very similar plot. Who would be the first 102.5 The Game on-air personality to die in the horror movie?
Chase. I mean, look, when it comes down to it, sometimes it's just like everybody runs and scatters, and who's the slowest, right?
And that was very quick answer from Rexrode. No hesitation.
Now, another way to look at it, it would be like, who is the Casanova? Because there's always like the teenage, you know what I'm saying? But I'm just going to go with the slowest.
There were three that came to mind to me immediately, and I'm interested to see what Keezer says. Keezer, your thoughts?
Yeah. If someone was here right now doing I usually switch off with someone doing the overnight. So it's like, okay, am I going to walk in and see something? Robby and I have a good story about that one time with me, but
we do.
Oh,
man. Time I thought Keezer was murdered.
Yep. That's a whole other shindig. But honestly, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think
Chase is about to catch some strays here on this program.
Yeah. Like, look, I mean, the limited athletic ability that was the running promo long time ago.
Limited is a very kind way to put it.
Yeah, gave me the sense of what he was. And then I met him. And I mean, look, we all love him, but I genuinely think if we were all here and we had to run away from something, I don't think he could keep up with us. I'm just saying. Well, wait, Joe too. Joe has a bum knee right now.
That's true.
That was a fair point.
Yeah, you could be in trouble right now, Rexrode. 3 people, when I came up with this question, immediately came to mind. Number 1, Stillman, because he couldn't shut up long enough to hide. So, if somebody was
Trent says the
chasing
same
him,
thing.
there's no way that he could be quiet long enough to, avoid disaster. So Stillman came to mind.
Run.
Chase for sure came to mind because, let's be honest, it would not go very well if he was trying to run away from somebody. And then number 3, and he's going to get mad when I say this, but that's fine. I don't trust Vengen to, if he has to run through, mud or something, he don't want to get his shoes dirty. So, Vengen not going to the hard areas, I think would be in trouble in this competition too. Immediately, those 3 came to mind. Stillman, Chase, and Vengen. I would probably vote Chase, although the more I think about it, the less quiet I feel like Stillman could be, so he might get my vote.
There's a lot of momentum for Stillman on the text line.
there
Perhaps wishful momentum.
Yeah, there's a lot of momentum for Stillman on the text line. No doubt about that. 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Tennessee playing Kentucky on Saturday. It has been a rough go of things for the Kentucky football team. What does the future look like for Mark Stoops? We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Join Jared Stillman, Chris Sanders, and Derek Mason at John Bon Jovi's Nashville this Sunday for the pregame show, 9:30 to 11:30. They'll break down the Week 9 matchup against the Patriots and give you the latest updates before the game. Pregame show presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Sundeck Nashville, Sloan's Motorcycle ATV, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Joe, Tennessee taking on Kentucky on Saturday night at Neyland Stadium. They are a multiple touchdown favorite in this game. Things not going well for Kentucky football right now. They just lost to Auburn 24-10 over the weekend. And a lot of noise coming out of Kentucky right now about the way things have gone down. We'll see what the quarterback situation looks like. But it's just bad right now with Kentucky. They're 3-5 overall. The offense looks abysmal. They've had really good performances for the most part on defense all season long, but their offense really looks like it's like setting modern day football back by 25 years when you watch their offense play. And it has people wondering, what does the future look like for Mark Stoops at Kentucky? Things are not going well. The fan base is getting restless. And Joe, if you remember last offseason, at the end of last regular season, it looked like Mark Stoops was going to Texas A&M. Like the deal seemed like it was all but done. Apparently, according to SI, to the point where Stoops was telling staff members and friends and boosters that he was going to College Station and that he was going to be the next coach at Texas A&M. And then all of a sudden he wasn't. And now Elko's the coach and things are going well for A&M down there. So you got all that in the backdrop. And now you have a disappointing season to this point for Kentucky football. What do you make of the situation at Kentucky, how bad this team has been, particularly on offense, and how that relates to the future for Mark Stoops?
Yeah, it's more often than not they have a quarterback issue, right? I mean, that's the thing. The guy here was a pretty big deal for him to have those 2 years of Will Levis, although the second year their offensive line was so bad they couldn't really take advantage. But it was a big year in 2021 for his program because he'd kind of gone through that stretch of just like, changing quarterbacks and this guy and that guy. And, here's a example of Brock Vandegrift that, sometimes you think, man, you get the really talented backup from the top shelf program and it can work out for you. And sometimes it doesn't. So it's especially like you said, that flirtation was more than just a passing conversation. It was intense. So that already sort of puts you in a different puts you in a different light with your fan base, right? And then you have a season like this, and it seems like everything is just kind of blowing up on them. I know some people in some years will be like, and you lost to Vandy, which still, you don't want to lose to Vanderbilt in the SEC, but this year that's not the embarrassment it was 2 years ago. Remember, Stoops has lost twice to Clark Lee now, but
can't beat him at home. Clark Lee's a road warrior up there in Kentucky.
He just hates playing teams from the state of Tennessee.
Apparently so.
But this year it's just hates playing a lot of teams. It's really interesting, because he has done an incredible job. That'll never change what he did there. For anybody who knows the history of Kentucky football, he brought them to a level of respectability that no one's been able to do. Really, no one's been able to do since Bear Bryant.
Yeah.
But they haven't been able to take that next step. But now when you have a year like this and coming off the Texas A&M thing, at least from the fan base perspective, there are a lot of people upset. What always, any of these coach things now that the conversation gets to, what about the money people who control that collective money,
right?
Because they have more power now than they did. They always have had power, and boosters, threatening to pull their funding. That's not a new thing. But when it's more direct, like, here's your talent pool money that we're all putting in here. No, I'm not giving you another dime until that guy's out of there. That's where I'm interested to know with Kentucky.
Me too. I mean, it's one of those things there. You look at his money right now, right? He signed another contract extension. I believe it was in November of 2022. And I think it goes until 2030. So I think the total number is somewhere in the $40 million range where he's still got left on his deal. So you're talking about a ton of money there that they would have to pay in order to get rid of him. Like, is that something that they would be willing to do? You know, here's the other part of this, Joe. For years and years, one of the questions we've talked about with Stoops is, does he finally leave and take another job, right? And the Texas A&M thing came up last year. And I'm not saying that there would be no interest in him, but I do wonder, like, does a year like this, with the way that it's going, like, how many people are going to be breaking down the door to try to hire Mark Stoops after this year? Because that would be the easy route, right? Of forget the buyout. Well, somebody else would just go hire him, and then Kentucky's not strapped with that money, and he goes and coaches somewhere else, and you hire somebody else if you're Kentucky. But I don't know. I don't know how many jobs are going to be open that are going to be, banging down the door for Mark Stoops if it continues to go like it's gone so far this year.
Yeah, you're not winning the press conferences. You're not winning the press conference as much if you get him this year. I still think, what he's done should be appealing, but it's also, if you're him, what is the, like, I wouldn't leave unless I'm going to like one of the places that just, like a higher level of resources, right?
Yep.
And there aren't actually that many.
Like Texas A&M?
Well, there you go. Yeah. But now, yeah, does an opportunity like that, is there something like that still for him? His floor on the flip side of this conversation, Billy Napier, is he saving himself? Now they're about to go into that. Like, again, their schedule, it's still, we talked about it a lot, but it's like they're about to get into the meat of that. So we'll see.
They got Texas coming up this weekend, I think.
Yeah. And so if they just get their doors blown off week after week, but Lagway looks pretty freaking good, and they have played well. I mean,
they have Georgia coming up. Sorry.
Yeah, I think they have both, right?
Yes.
And then it's insane. But maybe because that's a job too, like a Stoops. Could he have a shot at that if it were to open? But I don't know right now if he would be of that kind of interest. So, but I mean, I know we have quite a few Kentucky fans who listen. I mean, do you guys want Stoops gone? I mean, he's done awfully good things, but I know sometimes, you feel like, okay, maybe someone can take it to a higher level.
Dustin in Hopkinsville says, people in Lexington will donate to get rid of him. One thing we have are rich guys who love their cats in Lexington. This is from Dustin on the text line. I mean, I hear that. $40 million is a lot of money. That's a lot of money to pay a coach. It's no Jimbo Fisher, who would love to know what Jimbo's doing right now, collecting some of that money from Texas A&M. But $40 million is still a lot of money to pay somebody to not coach.
It is. No, it is. But I mean, I think once Texas A&M did that with Jimbo, at least everybody else can feel less embarrassed if they cut the huge check. It's gonna be really interesting to see how this season ends and what happens there. I mean, to me, he needs maybe a surprising win, like say Saturday in Knoxville, which I don't think he'll get, but. Like, I don't know exactly what's happened to that team. I watched the entire game against Georgia, and I watched most of the game at Ole Miss, and they have a legit defense, and it's all about the QE. But now it looks like everything's gone bad.
Tennessee's moved up to a 16.5-point favorite in the game on Saturday. I'm assuming, Joe, they got another point bump because of the dark mode jerseys. It's probably got added in there. Yeah,
that must be it. Those are terrible uniforms. I will say though, I know, well, they're terrible. At least I'm consistent. But the Venom, like the Venom, UT like little video thing they did was pretty awesome.
The Tennessee social media team might be the best at what they do in like the entire country. They're unbelievable.
Yeah, I can't sit here and say I look at all of them regularly, but I agree. I can't imagine anyone's better.
They're really, really good. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com will be with us a little bit later in the program. We'll get into all things Tennessee Titans with him. Coming up next, we'll get back into what I think has become the most difficult question in the NFL. How long do you wait on your quarterback? Another move made yesterday. We'll get into all that. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser, intern Robert here with you on this Wednesday morning. We'll have Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com with us a little bit later in the program. Joe, PK will be happy to know that you did not schedule a guest today at 7:30. Good for us.
Yes, we will never disrespect him again. Who was that again? Who was our guest last week?
That's a good question. Who was our guest last week at 7:30?
It was a good
I'll
guest.
look on the grid right now.
I think it was somebody.
It was our guy,
balls.
Ryan McGee.
Oh, yeah, it was Ryan McGee. Yeah, PK is like some random loser guest. Like, calm down there, buddy. Ryan McGee's a great guy. He was great.
Yes, he always is.
We can all coexist together.
We can. We'll have Kuharski with us a little bit later in the program. He should be in a great mood today. His Yankees stayed alive last night, Joe.
Yeah, well,
the comeback could be on.
Yeah, that's funny because he tweeted something like,
I had my last baseball game and then go to Robby and Rexrode.
it's like, well, maybe you should have some faith in your team, Kuharski.
You got like the goon squad out there for the Yankees trying to rip the ball out of Mookie Betts' glove while things going on. Got to get his people in line up there.
I was going to pull out a hacksaw and go after Mookie's wrist. Like, dude, like, calm down.
Good gracious. People are crazy up there. I've never seen it.
Daddy, I'm right now. Say you suck. Everyone sucks. Go gaga. Suck.
Probably an underutilized drop that we've got
That
there.
is-
Keyser really
that's
loves that one.
That's a very good drop.
We'll have Kuharski with us a little bit later in the program. Joe, we discussed it to begin the show. Anthony Richardson to the bench in Indianapolis in favor of Joe Flacco. And that's just kind of the latest symptom of what has become, I think, an increasingly difficult question to answer in the NFL. And the question is, how long do you wait on your quarterback? How long do you wait on your quarterback to develop? As we know, each situation is different. Each draft spot is different, right? Like I think there's a difference between Anthony Richardson being selected number 4 overall and Will Levis being selected at the top of the second round. Like there's a bunch of different factors that go into it. And we've laid out examples on both sides. There are some guys that it becomes pretty clear early on can't play. Like I think about Josh Rosen, right? Like Josh Rosen was drafted high by Arizona. He was discarded. They became pretty confident clearly early that he couldn't play. And the next year they drafted Kyler Murray in the first round. And Josh Rosen, I think, lasted another year in the NFL? 2 years maybe in the NFL? Like it didn't go very long for Josh Rosen. So there are some guys that it becomes pretty clear early on that they just can't play in the NFL. There are some guys, as we talked about with Darnold and Mayfield and Geno Smith, where the first stop doesn't go very well. And then they resurface elsewhere down the road and turn into competent NFL starting quarterbacks. And I think probably now more so than ever, the patience level with NFL GMs, with teams, with fans, all those things is lower than it's ever been with these quarterbacks. Like you want the immediacy like we see with CJ Stroud. You want Jaden Daniels. Like you want your quarterback to come in and show you signs of life immediately that you start to build your team and believe that he's the guy. It doesn't always work out that way. So, Joe, as it relates to the Titans, they're kind of right in the middle of this right now. How long do you wait on your quarterback? Like what's the line of demarcation where it's like, all right, we've seen enough. Like we just don't believe that this is our guy and it's time to go get somebody else. I think it's the most difficult question in today's NFL to answer, and the Titans find themselves in the thick of it, along with a lot of these other teams that we've talked about right now.
Yeah, there's never going to be an exact correct answer. But to me, you start with my baseline is someone should have a full season's worth of starts. I think that's a fair thing. And again, there are examples of people who didn't and ultimately disappeared. So you assume that means that it was the right decision that they,
Yeah.
I don't know. Josh Rosen goes somewhere else. Does he become a great, I don't know. He was a pretty good player at UCLA, but he's a good example of someone who was just like, oh my gosh, get out of the league.
Yeah.
But to me, I think that's got to be the baseline. And I know some people, I've heard other people say, it's like whatever, 25 starts or whatever it is. But I think you got to have like that's a season. And again, with Richardson, he still may by the time this season ends get to that point, get to that many starts. Where is Levis now? Levis is, he's a few starts away from that line. That I think you have to do that. And then, it's just and it's also like, why is a guy struggling? Because some things over time can get better, and some things are just like flaws. So, like we talk about Levis, and this may be true of Richardson too, but does he have the like the muscle memory, basically, like the mechanics to be consistently accurate enough?
Right.
I mean, first of all, Josh Allen, again, anything you can point to, you can go back to Josh Allen and say, well, that guy improved it, but I still think outlier there. And whereas if it's more decision making and things like that, well, then that is something that just like you have to have the time. And I think Jordan Love is a great example of, as the time went on and then the scheme fits to him. Again, that's good coaching. We must acknowledge over and over again, Matt LaFleur is a good coach and has a good feel for, putting things in and building his stuff around whatever a QB's skill set is. And so then over time, it all, then you light a match last year and all of a sudden Jordan Love is like, holy crap, who is this guy? But man, you didn't see that coming. I don't think anyone saw that coming based on the early returns. Yeah. He's a great example of like the benefit of sitting, but I think it's just, but in general, then I think it's like, what is it that you're struggling with? Some things are a time over time improvement thing. And some things are like, that's just what you are.
Well, and again, like, the Richardson situation, he's 22, right? So he's still a really young player who is not only in the NFL hasn't played a lot. He didn't play a lot in college either. Like, he's just not played a lot of football. You've got, that end of the spectrum. And then you've got Levis, right? Who did play a lot of college football and it's 25. Like, Will Levis is older than Trevor Lawrence. We've talked about that a lot on the show. So, like, how does that influence the way that he's evaluated? Like, how much better is Will Levis going to get in, age 26, age 27, age 28? Like, you brought up Jordan Love. Jordan Love's 25 too, right? Like, they're all kind of right there in the same age bracket, which is also kind of an interesting part of this as well. You're right. Like, there's never going to be, a specific set of criteria where it's like, this is when we know, and this is when we know that he's not the guy. It's all, situation, where you're drafted, the team around you, all those things, I think, play into this. But there's no doubt, I think, that the leash has become shorter in general with these quarterbacks that are breaking the league. I mean, think about Kenny Pickett, right? Like, Kenny Pickett was drafted in the first round and basically made it a season and a half as the starting quarterback. That's basically what it was with Kenny Pickett. And now he's a backup, 2 years, and Pittsburgh moved on from him. Like, he's not even on their team anymore. Think about that and put that in context. And that's Pittsburgh, Joe. I mean, think about that organization and how patient they are with pretty much everything. And they are kind of in line with everybody else right now of, determined he wasn't the guy pretty quickly and moved on. That's where we're at in the NFL.
Yeah. And, earlier in the show, I said I wouldn't be surprised if he emerged. But if you look at that situation, they had the year and a half. Also, Pittsburgh, the Steelers and Panthers share a building. Like they share, like Narduzzi and Tomlin have a deck where they look out on the practice field that they're like right next to each other. It's like a resort or something. We're like, hey neighbor, how you doing? You know, like they had years of also seeing that kid. He was around there, and then he's an older prospect. They bring him in, and so maybe. Maybe I'm wrong what I said earlier. Maybe you should look at the Pickett situation and say, actually, they had a lot of years of information. They gave him a shot. They are by definition, they are a patient, or they are the most patient, methodical organization out there, and they gave up on him. So maybe you should trust them on that. I mean, it's wild to me. It's like, they take him, and then here they are, like reclaiming Russell Wilson right now.
Right.
When I'm just wrong on him every time. Whoa, huge move for the Broncos. Oh, he stinks. Oh, he's still good. Okay. So maybe that one you trust a little more on Pickett. depending on and that is too. It's also like, what is the organization? You said earlier, if the Jets give up on someone, then probably just expect them to be great at some point somewhere else.
Yes. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. A lot of reaction to this. We'll get to some of that coming up next on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I think the most important question, the most difficult question in the NFL, how long do you wait on your quarterback? Titans find themselves in the thick of it. Colts are in the thick of it right now. We'll get more into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Tune in to 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville this Saturday for MTSU football. Blue Raiders taking on UTEP on the road. Pregame starts at 1 o'clock, kickoff at 2:30. MTSU football coverage on 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville, presented by Sloan's Motorcycle ATV. Also check out this week's Nashville's Best Deal, Teddy's Tavern. Teddy's Tavern, your go-to spot for great food, cold drinks, and live music right in the heart of downtown. Get half off a $100 gift card now at Teddy's Tavern at theGameNashville.com/deals while supplies last. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser, Paul Kuharski from PaulKuharski.com is with us here on the program. PK?
Traffic looked favorably upon me
It did.
when I woke up with some bounce in my step. But more importantly than the Yankees extending the season, I must ask Mr. Rexrode, how you feeling, champ?
Thanks for asking. That's really nice of you. Yeah, not great, man. I mean, I think I'm due another Toradol here. So, yeah, I think, and I have found out that if you let the Toradol lapse at all, it ain't pretty. But
Why don't we review this for the listener? So you were playing hoop clearly, and had an accident playing basketball.
I wish it was that. I mean, the only thing I
do
can come
too,
up
buddy.
with. Yeah, the only thing, I mean, like, I went up the stairs fast. I mean, like, yeah, I don't know, but it appears to be a torn meniscus. So we'll get an MRI tomorrow, and if so, it's probably. I didn't even know the existence of this term. You guys know the term bucket tear?
No.
Have you heard this term?
I have not.
If you Google it, so basically, it's the signs of a bucket tear, which is like just awful, and essentially like my bone is there's nothing between it, and yeah, it's a lot of pain. And yes, I did it like just doing normal things.
I think
day
it's
to
called
day.
a bucket tear because the guy who first suffered it at least tripped over a bucket.
Maybe so.
But you just
it could be.
let's
It could be.
reconfirm for clarity's sake. You walked up the stairs.
Like I felt it. I felt a tweak, but I feel tweaks all the time with these knees. I've had a torn patella tendon. I play hoops. I have what they call jumper's knee, which is
Played
basically
hoops.
well,
That's
yeah,
the
that's
end of
right.
Past tense.
I'm not giving up. In fact, it's funny because Katie said that yesterday. It's like, I guess basketball's done. I'm like, no.
No, it's
No,
done.
in fact, this is going to be the turning point for me to get in shape, and I'm going to be hooping at a higher level than ever after this. That's my vow. That's my vow.
Okay, now listen. In my past radio life, I had a colonoscopy. I recorded immediately coming out of
remember that.
anesthesia for a radio bit. I mean, you have to pledge right now that going into the surgery, you
Oh,
will
I
be
agree.
recording your thoughts. Coming out of the surgery, you will be recording your thoughts. This is all as close to, live to tape radio as is humanly possible.
Robby, is this something you would even want on this program?
Oh my God!
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Sign me up right now. Matter of fact, if we can get a contract written up, that'll be good.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't care, but I might swear. I mean, when I'm in it,
We can
Well,
bleep
they
it.
can bleep.
Yeah.
They have the
Okay.
technology, Joe, to
Yeah.
bleep a swear.
Okay, we'll see what we can do.
Well, I mean, I
We'll-
feel
we'll-
terrible for
we'll
you.
effort.
At the same time, the comedic value of you suffering a bucket tear, walking. Are your stairs? Do you have a steep stair at your house, or is it the
Not
normal
especially.
pitch?
Yeah, it's a normal hardwood, normal. Yeah, it's really there's really no excuse for this. This has to be like this has to be like it was about to happen. You know,
Yeah.
because of
You
overtime,
you
right?
frayed it playing hoop, and then
Oh.
the stair just took the extra fray and triggered it.
Stilly
It's
has
kinda
weighed
gross.
in and calls your new
Stilly
name
should be quiet. Stilly's gonna tear something walking.
LaJoia
Very-
Sneed. LaJoia Sneed.
Yeah, Stilly's
Pretty good,
physique
Stilly.
suggests that he'll tear something bending or crouching sometime very soon.
Joe, we wish you all the best in your recovery here.
Right.
Yeah.
Hope things
Send
go well.
cards. Do you know the address of the building off the top of your head?
I do.
No,
Okay, give out the address.
It's
so people-
1826, right? 1826 Murfreesboro
Oh, there you
Pike.
go.
Send it here.
1824.
Yeah,
Oh,
1824
Excuse me.
Murfreesboro Pike. Do you know the zip code?
I don't know the zip code. I have to look it up.
We'll get you the zip code.
Send-
We'll tweet that out.
Flowers.
Teddy bears, baked goods. Joe, what
please
what
no
else do you have?
anthrax.
Joe, do you have other things that comfort you?
37217. There you go.
37217. Do you have other things that comfort you, Joe, that you would like to receive as people bid you good health?
I don't want candy. I don't want any sweets. I'm done. I am.
Red
this is going to be a
meat,
turning point in my life.
Red
more red meat.
And mead-filled
carrots,
6 packs of beer,
celery,
pamphlets,
pea
novels.
pods.
You're going to be laid up for how long here?
Yeah, some magazines, I don't know. I don't know. Like I don't take an MRI until tomorrow.
Okay.
So this is what he thinks it is. And I'm still holding out hope.
Maybe it's not
wrong. And that I get to rehab.
Doctors are always wrong on these things.
I don't know.
Those guys don't recognize these tears at all. It's all like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this before.
Well, he did say we need to confirm with an MRI, right? I mean, there must be times when it's like, I think it's this.
Sure.
And then the MRI is like, oh, no. It's better than
You're going to be fine.
You're fine. You should have gone to work
Yeah.
yesterday.
It's going to be fine. Don't worry.
I came in yesterday. Robbie
How bad was the limp? How severe was
it? It was pretty severe. It was a struggle for old Rexrode to get around yesterday.
For us. Do you have that puppy wrapped up in an ace bandage, or did they give you some sort of brace?
Well, I got here yesterday, and I was like, huh.
Did he have it up
Rexrode's
on the table?
Here. Like, Rexrode very rarely beats me in. It does happen from time to time.
He beat me here, too.
But I was like, wow, Rexrode's here. And he's like, yeah,
that's because Ambucare dropped him off.
He gave me crutches.
What's the ice protocol right now?
Yeah, I'm just ice as much as you can and elevate, which this show is not helping me with. I mean, I could, I guess I could try to position myself. I could still do the show. Maybe I'll do that one day.
I think you should.
I'll try to
get to your living room. For some reason, I'm picturing you like in a neck brace,
just wheeling him around
with attendants. The whole
full body
cast.
Eyes
pushing the button. I need some more morphine.
What about your goon squad up there last night, ripping the ball out of Mookie Betts' glove?
I love the way you pretend that I would endorse this. I mean, it was a horrific behavior by a dude. That it's pretty funny. Fox, when they did wrap up video, they showed fans and they showed those two guys before they did anything.
There they are.
It's reprehensible behavior. I love that when he jarred the ball loose, it went back on the field.
That's pretty awesome.
He didn't even get the ball.
Yeah.
But I would have liked to have been on the path of ejection there to watch that guy going out.
You got renewed hope today? How we feeling?
I mean, how do you not have renewed hope? It's what fans do, right? So they finally got the bats going, even if it was against the worst of the Dodgers pitching. You feel a whole new vibe, and you've got Garrett Cole going tonight. If he can manage not to throw an inside fastball to Freddie Freeman in the first inning, you have to like your chances with your best pitcher going at home. And then if you could get it to 3-2, you can go to LA and get your ass kicked.
I might want to walk that Freddie Freeman guy. He's hitting the ball pretty well.
Listen, this guy, I mean, I respect what he's doing, but his I'm going to sound like a cranky old man yelling at the crowds. He mean mugs, for so extensively. I understand, celebrate from home plate to first base and then get about your business. When you stop between second and third to face the outfield stands and do a flex pose, this guy needs to be hit in the ribs sometime before this series is over.
Doing Rexrode in the
I
hospital
would
bed.
prefer he be hitting the ankle, quite frankly, but hitting the ribs, one good time to wipe that smug thing off his face.
Freddie, you better watch out tonight, son.
Wow.
Fastball's coming high and inside.
Well,
baby.
I thought last night was the night because when you're blowing them out, you got a chance to put them on
Send a
base
message.
and not care about it. But quite frankly, no lead is big enough.
615-737-1025. We'll take your well wishes for Rexrode on our text line. Paul Kuharski is here. We'll continue the conversation on the quarterbacks that we've been having. A lot of reaction to get to from you on that as well. And also all things Tennessee Titans coming up as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, the game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan this Saturday at 2:30 for our college football game of the week. Florida taking on Georgia, presented by Twin Peaks Restaurants. Take your tailgate to Twin Peaks, home of 29-degree drafts and wall-to-wall sports. We have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up here in just a few minutes at 7:45. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com is with us, talking Titans and all things NFL. PK, we brought this up throughout the show today. Anthony Richardson to the bench in Indianapolis. Joe Flacco coming in. And I think one of the hardest questions to answer now in the NFL is about quarterback. And how long do you wait? How long do you wait on your quarterback to develop? We've seen Bryce Young go to the bench this year. Now Anthony Richardson going to the bench this year. Titans are going through it with Will Levis right now, trying to determine how long is too long to wait with him. First off, your thoughts on Richardson and going to the bench in favor of Joe Flacco. And what do you make of what is in some ways a quarterback problem right now in the NFL in terms of trying to figure out exactly how long you wait to evaluate these guys?
Yeah, I thought you guys had a very good discussion while I was driving in. Good job by you. On Richardson, so the news comes out on Tuesday. I don't think anybody really discussed it, or Steichen put out any. They'll talk about it today, right? The news breaks from afar yesterday. I think they should sell it as disciplinary. The guy tapped out, and that shows a fundamental lack of understanding of the job. Even one of his teammates said, you can't do that.
Right.
And so I think that gives them an easy way to sell it as this is not us giving up on you. This is us saying, hey, we got to pull you out and give you some time to get a better handle on what the job is. And that sends a terrible message to the rest of the team. And we can't just continue along as if nothing happened. And then that gives you a better way to pull him without including him in the Bryce Young conversation of we're giving up, right? And they're in an interesting situation because their record's okay, and they can conceivably compete for one of these back-end AFC playoff jobs. But the tapping out thing, we've not seen that before.
No.
Right? And that's a mental weakness and a fundamental misunderstanding of the job. Maybe you do that in college after two tough plays. But, I mean, that's unheard of. Flacco's not ready to come in there. I mean, Flacco's a pro. He can step in and do that. But that's crazy. So I think in Indianapolis, you can frame it much differently than you can frame it most of the time, which helps. By the way, I mean, and Joe says this all the time, bet against all of them. I'm not patting myself on the back. This isn't the afternoon show. But these quarterbacks coming out that class all stunk.
Yeah.
I mean, Houston got the one, and the rest of them were terrible. And I think that was a popular sentiment that there might be one good one. I didn't like Richardson. I didn't like Levis. I didn't like Young, and I'm no guru. I tend to go with Joe, like bet against all of them. And if you get surprised by CJ Stroud, lucky for you.
Right.
But that's what makes this whole thing so impossibly hard. Finding one is just impossibly hard. And quite frankly, I mean, they're very much in the same situation with Titans are with Levis, except they spent way more draft capital. That guy's not going to be an NFL quarterback. And I don't even see the odds of, I think we've discussed it. Like, it's more conceivable that Levis is somewhere in year 4 playing a somewhat effective quarterback for someone. I don't see it in Anthony Richardson because he needs a lot of play time, and who's willing to endure what it takes to get him there.
By the way, Dov Kleeman put out a graphic on that class and had all those guys you mentioned, and also had Hendon Hooker. Like, wow, what a terrible class. Hendon Hooker,
handed off the ball beautifully.
Well, no, but Hendon Hooker is getting the benefit. I know some of it is because he was hurt, but also it's because he went to a place where they weren't sure if they had the guy, and now they got an MVP candidate. But he is going to have the benefit of that time.
He is.
And then we'll see if he gets a good opportunity.
Completely
he
different.
Definitely shouldn't be. Yeah, he shouldn't be included in this. Interesting.
But you said he should have been drafted 11th. which is interesting. So we'll see in time if, in fact, maybe we come back and play that clip of you including him in guys that should have been considered 11th, and you look like a genius. More likely, we play it, and it looks worse and worse and worse over time.
Okay. But I said he has to go 11th. That's what I said.
No,
I said he should
you
go
listed
11th.
him amongst the people that should have been considered at 11th. I think maybe the only person in America that had that.
My ranking of the QBs in that draft were Bryce Young was the one guy that I was like, I know he's going to be great. So already I'm wrong. Then I went Hooker, Stroud, Levis. So we'll see. But, I don't know if you guys
he's not going to be ahead of Stroud. I got a news flash for you there.
I would be surprised.
Yeah. That I would be surprised too. Like I said, being wrong is very. It's something we all do a lot when it comes to quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah,
but
we all do it a lot. What most of us try to do is take out the homerism element in it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yes, that's exactly. That's got to be it. But Mike Sando had this piece on Richardson. The Colts have been telling everybody it's not about the tap out, but the Sando piece is interesting because and this is other execs on the outside of that organization, but like the feeling in the league, like from this is like, of course it's that you have to do something because you're going to lose the locker room if you don't, which is an interesting thought. Like that moment is like you have to there has to be accountability for that. And obviously he's not playing well and he needs a reset. Of course.
They've got a viable alternative that's won them games. That's the thing that complicates.
Well,
it.
there's
in Nashville, you don't have that.
Exactly.
That's kind of a blessing for Will Levis for sure.
And we've discovered that more and more the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, watching him play.
Exactly. And on Richardson as well, like I agree, we talked about this earlier in the show. It is an opportunity to sell it that way. That was my initial reaction when I saw it was, oh, okay. So like they're basically punishing him for taking himself out of the game. I don't know if that's it or not. Look, the bottom line is exactly what you also just said a minute ago. He's playing horribly. Like that's the other part of this too. He looks awful out there. And I said it from the start, like he wasn't ready to play. Like he's not ready to be an NFL quarterback. I love a lot of the tools that he's got. He's incredibly athletic. He's got a huge arm. And every now and then he'll make a throw where you're just like, geez, like that one he had early in the year to Alec Pierce that was 65 yards on a dot was unbelievable. But there's not enough of that. And there's way too much that's just completely awful.
Here's why they're twisted in a pretzel, though, right? You can say, well, put Flacco in there. You can contend for a back-end wild card spot. And you can argue about the glory of a back-end wild card spot, but if you can get in the playoffs, you've got to go try to get in the playoffs. But a friend of mine who is like a Herndon-ish, low-level Herndon-ish guy in Indianapolis says, but then do you put Richardson in September of next year, right, and you just have stalled this whole thing? And you push back the clock, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, what does it mean for Chris Ballard?
If you're ultimately going to put him in there to give him the games to judge him on, it needs to be now. Like you can't push off the decision. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And he's right. So, yeah. And it doesn't say much about the regime and the decision-making and the plan.
That's why Robby, laid it out earlier. The best thing for them would be they have a brutal schedule coming up. Just get their butts kicked in most of the, 3 of these 4 games or something, and then you give it back to Richardson, and it's like, okay, now it's back to the main point, which is
we're not
can this guy actually be the guy? Because if they're just limping along, on the fringe of the playoff race, and Flacco's keeping them winning enough, like what are you doing for yourself? Like what do you really? I hear you. If you can get in the playoffs in this league, get in the playoffs, but I mean, they are different from the Titans. They committed the 4th overall pick to this guy.
Right.
Yeah, they've got,
and he's young, and everybody knew that this guy was going to be rough if you played him early, and that's exactly what's happened.
This is a lot like the Titans. You're right, Joe. This is a lot like what the Titans just had with Bills, Lions. They've got Vikings at Vikings, Bills at home, Jets, which is a reprieve. Lions.
Yeah.
Then Patriots, Broncos, Titans, Giants, Jags.
But that 4-game stretch,
that's
right
when you play
there
Richardson.
Yeah.
Right.
Get Richardson back in there against the Giants.
So you could give Flacco a month of Vikings, Bills, Jets, Lions. and then they won't be a playoff contender anymore, and then no problem.
Anthony, welcome back in. Don't tap out this time. Make sure you stay in the game.
Have you been working on your cardio?
Are you in better shape? That still is amazing. I was trying to think. We've got obviously, defensive tackles. You see that. You don't really see it on the offensive line. I've never seen a quarterback take himself out of the game like that. Like, guys, need some help. Joe, come on in. It was wild.
What was his explanation?
He said he was tired. Yeah.
Not gonna lie, I was tired.
Yeah.
That's what he said. I was
I mean,
I'd
"You
come
lied,
up-
that guy's
lied,
not
come up with
fit.
something
definitely
else.
lie."
Yeah.
My meniscus hurts. Tell him, Joe.
Bucket tear.
Exactly. Bucket tear. Bucket tear.
Potential bucket tear.
Yeah.
My bucket hurts a little bit.
615-737-1025, our phone number. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com is with us here on the program. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Fly to right by Torres. Betts in the corner. Does he have room? Fights with the fan. And they're going to say that it's an out and fan interference. So an out, one gone in this first. It's the second time that Gleyber Torres has hit a ball that has ended up in fan interference in this series. He had the home run turned into a double back at Dodger Stadium. And yeah, Betts has that ball in his glove, and this fan literally tries to take his glove off, pries the ball out of there. A for effort.
Well, he won't be watching the game much longer.
It is that time of the day, time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. Joseph, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I actually, of course, as the lead-in may suggest, I do want to talk about baseball. Starting out, PK, congrats. Maybe you should not just completely give up on your team publicly as a fan. I hope last night was a lesson for you. But look, all right, I've watched more baseball this year than a while because my Tigers finally showed a pulse, right? And it was amazing. I mean, your team winning postseason games, hard to beat that. But I got to ask you guys, when did we start doing Little League crap in Major League Baseball? Like, when we grew up, it was like, hey, hey, bada, swing, or we want a pitcher, not a belly itcher, stuff like that, right? And at some point, I think this stuff kind of flowed up, and I don't know when it happened in college baseball, but it's probably been, I'm guessing 20 years or so. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but sort of the demonstrative stuff every time you get a hit, and that's fine. It's college kids. You can live with that. Tony Vitello's Vols took it to a new level. I can live with all that. But like when a Major League Baseball player gets a double and then he looks at his dugout and he does a little gesture, like, it's like these weird hands that he's smacking his own butt or like disco dancing, Will Ferrell in the club or whatever. It's like, I can't stomach it. And you can call me a boomer if you want. I find it to be absolutely unbearable. And I mean, it kind of goes along with what PK was saying with the Freddie Freeman stuff. Like you just have to mean mug and bat flip to the absolute extreme with everything. I mean, it wasn't long ago, in Major League Baseball, a guy would get a big hit late in the game and maybe he'd be on second. Ties the game in the bottom of the eighth or something. And it's like a fist pump, like, let's go. That's a big moment. That's natural. That's what it's supposed to be. That's appropriate. This prescribed, goofy little chicken dance crap that we're doing now, get out of here with this. I mean, can this generation of athletes just do a damn job, shut up about it, and then move on to the next play ever in any situation? And now I will find a cloud to shake my fist at.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm 100% with you, and call me a boomer too. I mean, you're supposed to get on base, a third of the time. Now it's a quarter of the time.
Yep.
And I just don't understand. And my team's guilty of it too, but it's too much.
Everybody does it.
It's too
much.
When did
this start?
It's too much of a celebration, and it's not enough of I just did my business. I just did my job. And I don't know if the kids love it, so be it. I need the kids to love it. I want the kids to love it more. So maybe you and I have to ease our stance. And I'm sure the text line will take us to task now. And I'd like somebody to educate.
It already is.
I want them to have fun, but I think there's a line between them having more fun. I don't want them to be stoic about it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it needs to be a dance party.
I don't have any problem with, like, when Freeman hits the walk-off, you do whatever you want to there. I have no problem with that.
I'm
like
with you.
it's like, I thought, the Blue Jays a few years ago, I don't know if it's probably been 10 years or so now, but Bautista hit just an absolute rocket as a walk-off, and he slung the bat like 70 yards. Like he threw that bat so far, and people got so mad about it. And I was like, yeah, in that situation, I don't care. Sling the bat. Like all that's fine. What I start to have a problem when it's what you're talking about, Joe, of like when it's the fourth inning, it's 0-0 and you hit a double and you start doing the chicken dance on second base after it's gone down. That's when I think it's probably going a little bit too far. When you hit a big walk-off home run, go nuts. Do whatever you want to do. It's the other stuff that kind of drives me nuts every now and then.
Liam McLeod says, agreed. Baseball's too exciting. We need longer stretches with stoic dullness. Yeah, I get it. I'm taking a lot of crap. I knew I would, and that's fine. And I'm with you. Like in a big moment, yeah, maybe go a little far, but that's fine, man. It's a huge moment. Do your thing. People do it. Yeah, it's just the mundane. Who cares? Oh, I gotta look at the dugout. Oh, here we go. Like, when did this start? Like,
But
this is
it's-
little league stuff.
Some people
This is
point
not
out like
that
it's
old. This
it's
is
a thing
new.
in football too. Like one of the things in football that drives me nuts is the defensive back celebrating and doing all this dancing and all this stuff when he had nothing to do with the play.
Yeah,
Like
ball
when the
falls
quarterback
incomplete.
just misses the throw or the receiver drops it and the DB's back there going nuts like he had anything to do with it. That drives me nuts in the NFL, and that's been around for a while.
Someone brought up the first down thing. Just about everybody now, when they get a first down, they show the first down thing. It's that to me, it's still not. It's not like the thing that would be comparable would be that let's everybody look at the sideline and say, "Okay, guys, ready? First down together." Like that would be annoying.
Dylan in Antioch says, I agree. The thing that the Dodgers do where they wave their arms in the air and then swing their hips like they've got an invisible hula hoop is weird as hell. It's from Dylan in Antioch.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not a big fan of the hula hoop,
Ridiculous.
and I've seen enough of the hula hoop to last me a lifetime. I can't be impartial about Freddie Freeman. I'm going to have nightmares about Freddie Freeman for a long, long time.
You are. I mean,
I hate him.
Jeez. The PK's taking a lot of crap
And
on the
he's
text
got
line
those-
about
he's
his
got
stance
those-
to bean Freddie Freeman, too.
I didn't say bean him. Bean him is in the head. I don't want anybody hitting the head. But there's nothing wrong with wanting a guy hitting the ribs in a baseball game. It's part of baseball. That's another thing. These kids today think like hitting somebody is some kind of huge sin. Hitting somebody's part of the game. It used to be a guy hit a home run and stood there for a little while. He automatically got hit the next at bat. So learn a little history.
I got a text that says the most boring game in the world shouldn't have any fun at it. 162 games of no fun. Look, I'm here for fun. I like fun.
I want fun.
I want fun.
I want fun.
And again, I have no problem with like the walk-off homers and all that. Go nuts. Some of it I do think gets taken a little bit too far.
I mean, talk about Freddie Freeman. Go back to Kirk Gibson. Okay.
Yep.
I saw that guy, first of all, last time my team won it all was 40 years ago. Holy crap. And like, that was just an organic. I mean, he was slapping hands so hard when he hit the 3-run homer off Goose. Gosh, he must have absolutely torn ligaments in hands. Or when he hits the one off Eckersley with the Dodgers in '88, right? He's just doing the little, rev it up. And like, that was awesome. That's fun. That's awesome. That's natural. I'm talking about prescribed.
Yeah.
What's our little dance now for my third inning double?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
I think it's a very reasonable thing to say. Have all the fun you want. Don't choreograph it.
Yeah. That's you see, you summed it up right there. You should have just said that at the start.
615-737-1025. Our phone number 615-737-1025. Paul
Joe
Kuharski
complimented me while he's booking a guest next week for 7:30. And I didn't say your guest last week was a nobody. I said your next guest will be a nobody.
Yeah. Who can we get at 7:30 next week, Joe? We got to think about that.
Stilly?
Maybe schedule one for 8 too.
Phil McCracken.
Yes, 615-737-1025. PK in the house for the next hour. We'll get into the Tennessee Titans with him. Lots to get to in the aftermath of that debacle on Sunday. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Stand back. There's a hurricane coming through.
Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com with us for the next hour, talking all things Tennessee Titans. Brought to you by Moments Peace Salon and Day Spa and Parman Energy. Visit parmanenergy.com, your one-stop petroleum solution. And as we do every week, best question on our text line for PK will win a Moments Peace Salon and Day Spa $50 gift card. So get those questions in on our text line, 615-737-1025. PK, we talked to you on Monday, a disastrous special teams day from the Titans in Detroit. And we threw out the possibility, like, could Colt Anderson lose his job this week? Well, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. And Brian Callahan talked about that on Monday of watching film with Colt Anderson and trying to fix what they've got going on out there. Are you surprised that no move was made? What do you make of the situation on special teams right now with Colt Anderson coming off what was just a truly historic and abysmal performance on Sunday in Detroit?
Yeah, probably not. Spoke to somebody from the old regime about Anthony Levine, who's the backup, the assistant special teams coach, who didn't necessarily think that he's ready to be a full-time special teams coach either. I know people would respond, well, Colt Anderson has shown he isn't, but didn't think that would necessarily amount to an upgrade. So that could be part of the reason why you wouldn't make the move. But, you know, it's unsurprising a team that's trying to fight through things and go forward hasn't put forward a sacrificial lamb at this stage, I think. Here's the thing. Callahan basically said, well, we needed to make a change to the kind of guys we had on the field to stop the punt blocking issue, and that leaves us with some coverage issues. I mean, this is the NFL. You've got to have guys you can put on the field who are going to be able to both stop punts from being blocked and cover punts downfield. We know the back end of this roster does not have a slew of complete football players. So you've got to play more starters. I would think there are a couple candidates there who, need to be on the field more. I would think Roger McCreary, who played 7 snaps, Jarvis Brownlee, who played 8 on special teams, Nick Westbrook-Akine, who played 1, and earned his stripes on special teams. I'd like to see those guys on the field more as opposed to some of their counterparts who were. Stonehouse hits the ball far, but not high. He's got to translate some of that distance into height. But I mean, if you're making a conscious, listen to how amateurish that sounds.
Yep.
We had to put on guys who would stop blocking. So now we have guys who can't cover. I mean, that sounds like the kind of decision you're making in high school or low level college, not a Sophie's choice that you're making at the NFL level. And if that's the case, look, we understand that the depth is a hard part of the roster to recover, but they made choices to go away from Kendall Jackson and Hassan Haskins. Yeah. And those are bad choices. So I thought, Mike Vrabel maybe overvalued special teams guy. This staff is undervaluing them.
Yeah. I understand to a point the idea there of what Callahan's talking about, but I'm with you. I just never seen anything like that. I've never seen anything like what we saw in that game from an NFL team. I know that I think there was like a Jags-Lions game with like the Lions only points were return yards when they were terrible and, like 2004 or something, like when Leftwich was quarterback. But I mean, like to never, to never figure this out and to get absolutely embarrassed like that over and over again. I mean, we were joking about this yesterday. Like, you putting Devondre Sweat out there to block? That's
the thing. Like, you're not asking these guys to play left tackle to protect the punter.
Right.
Just get in the way slightly.
Of someone a little bit.
And in the meantime, they are allowed to have big returns themselves. And Jaquan Jackson does absolutely nothing.
Yep.
And Joe, again, DNA thing. You know, Mark Mariani, the last good returner they've had, they've rolled out consistently guys who've done very little as return men. And they've got 2 special teams coaches in a row. When asked, what do you want in a punt returner? And the first thing they say is not to fumble.
Yeah.
Now let's at least, I'm begging you, get to a point where we know that. That goes without saying. And you start from something more than that. Congratulations to Brian Callahan, to Mike Vrabel, to Craig Aukerman, and to Colt Anderson, that you've established a standard of kick and punt return where your guys don't fumble. I think they come back to the sideline and they get pats on the back. Good job not fumbling. Bravo.
It's like the turnover trash can, but it's like, you know, like the ball pops out to them and they hold it. You know what I mean? It's like the turnover chain. They celebrated on the sideline.
Hey, you held on to the ball. Way to go.
That is so elemental. It is insulting to fans to say our return guys didn't fumble. What'd your guys do? Oh, they ran for 226 yards.
Scored a touchdown.
And by the way, Jaquan Jackson did fumble.
He did. That's what I was going to say.
But in this thing, Rand Carthon didn't point out, he recovered his fumble. The ball, the bounce luck, went in the Titans' favor on this one.
We're going to get into that here in a minute because been some reaction to that. It's amazing how they've gone from, you know, getting punts blocked all the time in the first part of the season, and they haven't been able to cover punts all year long, but it was exaggerated on Sunday to the point where it was such incompetence trying to cover a punt. Like, I'm with you guys, and we've talked about this. Yes, the back part of their roster does not have depth, and the back part of their roster is a problem. And look, you brought up the Chestnut example, and you know, Haskins being a core special teamers that they let go. Maybe they didn't value special teams enough when they were making some of these decisions. Having said that, like, it's not like this is the worst roster in the history of the National Football League that the Titans are throwing out there. And yet you'd think that when you watch them try to cover special teams. It's bad. Like, to me, some of this has to be on coaching. Like, it's not just as simple as, well, we just don't have the guys out there on special teams. It shouldn't be that bad ever. I don't care who you got.
The punt block stuff at least was individual. You know? This is a unit-wide thing. Wherever, you know, it was a disaster across the field. It's hard to fathom that they're that bad. And, you know, Colt's going to say it's unacceptable. You know, so it'll be at least the 3rd time that he said it's unacceptable. Well,
right.
If a player comes to the sideline 3 separate games and says it's unacceptable, what happens to him?
He's not playing anymore. No doubt about it.
Do you think PK, and this is a bit of a leap, but the fact that he wasn't fired, which I thought there was a chance that it was so bad that there would have to be like some public accountability for it. But do you think there's any sort of sign that Amy is resolved to stay out of things and let this group just do what they do?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's certainly a sign that she, you know,
in this case didn't
let herself get frustrated, didn't let herself get involved, or let Brian defend it. I should have asked if his conversation with her was moved up on the daily calendar.
Yeah.
Because it's usually Monday afternoons, and I wonder if it might have been Monday morning or Sunday night.
Brian, we need to talk. We need to talk about special teams.
I mean, I wrote it from Detroit. You know, Sheila Ford Hamp is one of her, you know, probably her best friend in the league. And they're modeling after what Detroit's doing now. So does she come out of there saying, well, their first year, they really struggled? Or does she come out of there saying, man, we are miles away from what they're doing, and I've got my doubts?
We're going to get into
Good
the
question.
ball bouncing the wrong way comments from Rand Carthon with PK coming up next. Lots to get to on that front. Again, taking your questions for PK on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com with us here on the program. Best question for PK on our text line wins a $50 Moments Peace Salon and Day Spa gift card. So keep those questions coming at 615-737-1025. So Nick Suss, who was on the program with us yesterday, caught up with Rand Carthon after the game on Sunday. I'll read part of the comment that's generating a lot of reaction so far this week. Quote, I expect our guys to continue to play hard, which is what they do. The ball's not round. You don't know which way it's going to bounce sometimes. It's those couple of opportunities that we had in the game where we jar the ball loose, but it bounces right back to them. And then on the other side, it gets away from us. So you can't predict which way the ball bounces. But one thing I know about our team is those guys show up every day at practice. They prepare, come out and fight. So we've got to continue to fight until the ball bounces our way, is what Rand Carthon had to say. BK, that has been all over the place this week in terms of reaction from Titans fans. When you hear that and read that from Rand Carthon, what goes through your mind? What did you make of that answer to the question when he was asked about what's happened through the first 7 games and building for the last 10?
I mean, I hope they're listening in the building. It's a 38-point loss. If they had perfect fumble luck in that game, it would have been a 17-point loss.
Yeah.
So things would have really, really changed. His number one job is to acquire good players. Jury's still out, doing a good job in some departments, some good drafts, free agency, not looking so hot. His number 2 job to me is to kind of read the heartbeat of the team and have an honest, blunt understanding of what he has and what he doesn't have. And to cite fumble luck in a 5-question interview as a thing that is a determining factor for this team makes him seem really out of touch. Now, I think Rand Carthon's a smarter guy than he comes across in every media thing he has. He's a relationship person. It's clear that he has developed and good relationships with a lot of people that has helped him get this job and have the success that he's had in this job. So I don't understand how there's such a giant disconnect between that and his relationship with the local media. He's got relationships with national media. I mean, Ian Rappaport told me he's like the greatest guy he's ever dealt with, that he knows the names of Rappaport's kids and all of that. So I don't understand how he turns into this stiff, unnatural guy who's saying something ridiculous to that in 5 questions with Nick Suss. And yeah. I think, let me just finish the big thought. There's some kind of disconnect there. I think the team's not concerned with it. And I think that's terrible because he has to communicate the vision and things about this team, at least until next October, when they've got 4 games of next season and perhaps winning can take over and do the talking for them. I would sit down. I know it's probably not going to be me for an hour, for as long as it takes, without a clock on it that makes him nervous, and let him show me these skills in an interview that would convince Nashville, yes, I do understand the pulse of this team and can communicate the things and be this guy that everybody tells you I am. Everybody tells you I'm this guy, but when I speak, you don't see it at all.
Yeah.
You're just mad because Suss hustled and got him. You were over there talking to Arden Key, man.
But I wasn't talking to Arden Key. I was talking to somebody else. But I would never think to approach Rand Carthon in that environment because he would never say yes. I asked to interview him last week, and I was turned down. So
in all seriousness,
and I'm the least likely person he would talk to. I think he's nervous to talk, but I don't understand how he's nervous to talk to local media when he's backslapping every other person in America.
Yeah. In all seriousness, I mean, I think there's some, I mean, I agree in general with most of that, but I don't know about the whole, like, yeah, okay. More transparency, more, let's see who you really are with local media. That would be good, but either he's going to do the job well or he's not.
Well, does that instill confidence in you that he can do the job well? Why not
No.
show us that you can do the job well through fundamental articulation of the job? And then
Yeah,
I
but
understand
again,
what's wrong with my team.
some of these GMs are, there's a pretty wide range of like public personas, aren't there? From like pro GMs, like to me, it's
This
just
is a
like,
pretty unique circumstance right now. They need somebody other. They can't hang Brian Callahan out to dry the way they hung Mike Vrabel out to dry. He's not the same guy.
well, I would definitely say like don't ever talk about the ball bouncing like
Ever
just,
again.
Basically, my whole thing is just like it's like this is a universal thing to anybody in a situation like that. When it's going poorly, yeah, we got to do better. I got to do better. Thank you. I mean, I hate to be like, it's basically like, got to coach better, got to play better, got to GM better, and bye. I mean, that's to me. Then you either do the job or you don't. But where you get yourself in trouble is saying goofy things like this. And by the way, real quick, guys, I do want to say, it's been nice to see someone else at the station yelling at Stilly, which is D-Mace, and they've got a nice feud going. I gotta say, I heard D-Mace's explanation about Rand was talking like big picture, and I don't think that's correct at all. I'm actually with Stilly on this. He was talking specifically. He was referencing plays in that game, and that's where it's like, guys, you lost 52-14. This is definitely, you shouldn't do it anyway. But like at least last year it was like they had lost a bunch of close games. I mean, people still got mad about that. But certainly you don't say stuff like that after a 38-point
Well,
loss.
he wants a 17-point loss.
Well,
He thinks that would be substantially better.
There may come a time where maybe the ball doesn't bounce their way, and that's the difference in a game or two.
That hasn't been it now.
You cannot say that again if you're Rand Carthon. Like you did it after the season last year, and even then it's like, well, you guys were 6-11. You had a left tackle that couldn't block anybody all year, and you scored 17 points a game. I don't know if it was the ball bouncing your way.
I also think there's a babying of the players here. Why can't he say, and this is I get what you're saying, Joe, about saying kind of scripted things. Hey, we spent a lot of money on a lot of guys here, and they're not playing up to our standards at this time, and we need better. And at 1-6 here, I expect those guys to go back to work and to give us better. Vrabel said that all the time. The highest paid guys on the roster have to play the best, and they're not doing it. Now, I know they're scared of anything that Vrabel might have said. Oh, that's tough and mean and not collaborative and soft. But that's if he said that, people would have been like, yeah, Rand, you're right. Let's go. Let's go.
Well, David Poyle would constantly, he would have no problem ripping players who weren't playing well.
I don't want to rip. I mean, that's not a rip. That's a factual statement.
Yeah.
Give me some factual statements. That's not a factual statement that the ball bouncing poorly is the reason they're losing. That's excuse-making BS.
It's concerning. I mean, you have to know if you're him in that situation that you just got beat 52-14 and your fan base is looking around saying, what's going on here? Like, you're not even competitive. And for you to not have the awareness to say something like that. I mean, look, we've heard from people all week saying that those comments are like insulting to our ears as a fan base. It's hard to argue against that.
And
totally
what
fair.
they're probably going to do here is hide him. And if you have to hide your chief personnel guy, you've got a problem. I understand personnel acquisition is the number one thing. Right now, there's a bunch up in the air about that, and we're going to see what he does and all of that. And if he acquires good personnel and they play well, that's fine. But the clock's ticking on him. And if you have to hide that guy, whoever that guy is in your organization, are you proud of that? Here's our guy. We're going to go hide him. Media requests.
Yeah,
denied.
it's an interesting
Rand,
situation.
you shouldn't have said yes to that guy.
Right. Like he is obviously like the relationship guy and all that stuff, and people absolutely gush about him. And for whatever reason, it doesn't translate. So I'd like him to come out there and be accountable and talk when things happen. But I agree, they probably will have him. I mean, again, go back to that first draft. I mean, we joked about that this week, but like seriously, like Tyjae Spears came in, no ACL, totally fair questions about like that, especially for an organization that had this recent history of taking hurt guys, and he turns it into, let's not ask negative questions. It's a sweet moment for these guys, to the point that his coworker like basically lost his mind there in front of us. We couldn't believe it, right? So
that was telling.
But here's a question for you, PK. Someone says on the text line, is there anyone in the organization who won't sugarcoat how bad things are right now? I think Brian Callahan like, for example, his answer to Stilly's question this week about the ball bouncing. I mean, I think Callahan has done a pretty good job of, he's never going to I don't know, shouldn't say never, but he's typically going to trend optimistic, I guess. But I think he's been pretty frank, don't you?
Oh, I think he's absolutely been frank. If you don't feel like you're getting honest answers from Brian Callahan, I mean, I think PR would tell him to be less honest, be more like Rant. Right? I mean, Brian Callahan said, I'm just pulling up this tweet. Right now, our special teams gives up yards. Defense doesn't get a stop. We don't do anything on offense. We turn it over. So it's just everything needs to be better. And so that's all there is to it. You've got to look at it and find a way to get those things corrected. And until we do, it's going to be hard. There's no happy face on that. He's not spinning positive there.
No,
that's frank.
Yeah, no doubt. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. A lot of your thoughts to get to on the Rand Carthon comments earlier this week. We'll continue this discussion coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com with us here on the program, talking all things Tennessee Titans. Taking your questions for PK on our text line, 615-737-1025. Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line and welcome in Myrtle to the program. Myrtle, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, fellas. Hey, I don't think that's Rand's excuse. I think that's just a figure of speech, like a lady at the restaurant who fills your tea up and says, not a problem. And I'd like to leave you with a thought for the day. Confucius says, team who lose stars sit in darkness.
Thank you, Myrtle. Appreciate the call. Yeah, I figure, Joe, we talked about this with what D-Mace had to say, and he basically called it a figure of speech yesterday, too, the ball bouncing the wrong way. But, you're in the immediate aftermath of a 52-14 loss, and he's referencing some plays in the game that happened. Like,
yes,
I don't
plays in that game.
I don't think this was like some figure of speech of the ball bouncing the wrong way.
It was a couple sentences, too. It wasn't in passing.
Right, exactly. So,
and also, if and D-Mace can mention, this player not working out or whatever, that should not be an analogy. Like, if you make a bad choice as a GM or a player who's bad, that's not the ball bouncing that's you not doing well. You know what I mean? Like right. There is bad luck that happens, and sometimes there's bad. I can buy that with, like, if you get a good player who gets hurt, then it's like, well, the ball didn't bounce our way. Now with Snead, for example, you knew there was a history, but I'm saying you draft someone in the first round, you see he's a great player through 4 games, torn ACL, huge impact in your season. That's the ball bouncing the wrong way in terms of personnel.
Right.
A poor decision is you making a poor decision.
I also don't think the personnel question was about the quality of street free agents. Right? That's not what he's asking. We all know that you're not going to go solve this team's problems. I think the question is more about, like, what you failed to do or what you assembled and what it's doing.
I got one text that says, I hope people think of the fan experience. Some of us pay for PSL season tickets, which we sacrifice for since they're so expensive. We also pay taxes, which we give as a handout to Amy. Titans are disrespectful to the fans. Rand seems to think that we can't see through his BS, but the Titans treat us like we're stupid. He can't even tell the fans who pay for him anything worth hearing. Why are the Titans so seemingly secretive? Is that just my imagination, or are other teams similar?
Well, they're all secretive. I think the Titans could differentiate themselves somewhat by being more transparent. I think Brian Callahan has been far more transparent.
I would agree.
That's a refreshing thing about this team. And Rand would be wise to follow his lead, but he tends to misstep when he speaks publicly.
Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Dylan. Dylan, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning. How you guys doing today?
Good, man.
Great.
Yeah, I just had one thing. I have 2 things to say. One's about the ball bouncing your way thing. Didn't he say he got that from Vrabel? So he's just like continuously using this phrase that he got from Vrabel, and he thinks that it's like a neutralizer to whatever question is being asked to him, and it kills me. But another thing is, I don't know if you guys heard, but I think Callahan was asked about that question that was given to Rand, and he kind of just said the opposite, and it just gave me flashbacks of draft night with Vrabel and Rand. And then this time, Callahan's like, well, I don't, that's kind of true, but we need to make our own luck, kind of thing. So it seems like there's another disconnect between the coach and then the GM. So I'll just hang up and listen to what you guys have to say.
Thanks for the call. I mean, I appreciated Callahan's answer to that question.
Yeah. I think he gently, refuted what Rand said. And I mean, I don't know that it's a disconnect as much as it is Callahan, like most people, saw that and said, oh no, don't say that. And then basically did a very gentle job of damage control.
Saying something smarter.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Which is exactly the right thing to say. And this is like to the fan there on the text line. That's people when it's going this poorly. Yeah, people want to hear, and they're paying a lot of money. They want someone to take public accountability for it. It's really simple, and it's not going to make everything better. But my God, at least do that.
No doubt.
I mean, was there any element of my bad in what Carthon said?
No. I mean,
And is there an element of my bad in what Callahan says every day? Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And that's when you're, like you said, when you're 1-6, people don't want to hear about the ball bouncing the wrong way. And, it is what it is. He's made the comment at this point. I don't know when the next time we'll hear from Rand Carthon is, but,
we're making sure it'll be real soon.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Also, Rand's big on, this is the coach's time of year.
Right.
As if, like, during his time of year, he's talking on some regular basis.
Right.
Well, in his time of year, he talks at the combine and at the owners' meeting.
Yep.
And
not very much.
So he talks twice in his time of year, and Callahan talks 4 times a week during his time of year.
Yeah.
It's about even.
It's just a little bit different from that standpoint. And then now there's the quarterback part of this too. You're 1-6. Look, the Buffalo-Detroit games from a style of play standpoint went about how we thought. They got killed in both of those games. We talked about that heading into it. 1-6 was all but a certainty, and now here they are. They're at 1-6. We'll see what Levis's availability looks like starting today. But we talked about this earlier this week, PK. Like, I know the fan base is kind of shifting their mind to, all right, get the draft pick, get the highest draft pick you can. Like, Callahan needs some things to start going right for him. Like, he needs to prove that he can navigate through some of this. And looking at the schedule, you're not going to get too many more better opportunities than Sunday against New England to start that. If you're Brian Callahan.
Here's the only passing offense in the league that's worse than the Titans coming to town. The 2 worst passing offenses in the league. So you know what that means. They're going to throw for 400 yards each, and we're going to see a 45-42 game.
I'll take it.
And if the Titans get some ball bounce luck, who knows what could happen?
They could put up a lot of points.
No, I mean, this is a game they need to win because the opportunities to win based on what they've done so far are few and far between. And I think they should win, 4-ish. And this is one of them. Patriots are coming off a win against the Jets. Conceivable they have a letdown. They're an immature team as well. They've been called soft by their own head coach.
Yep.
I would think the Titans are preaching this week about punching them in the mouth. And at home, fans are down on them, and understandably so. But there's every chance for the Titans to go take this game if they play smarter, if they shore up special teams. And I think with either quarterback, if they play sensibly, they did unlock Calvin Ridley in that game.
They did.
And if they can pick up on that, that would be a really big thing to get things going. And then you got to get a lead and sustain a lead, or at least maintain contact.
We're getting draft questions already. Yep. I'm not doing it.
No,
not doing it. But to that point, if the Titans beat the Patriots Sunday, there will be some fans who are like, don't screw up the number 1 pick. But understand, it is critical. I think this is a huge, huge moment for Brian Callahan. Coming off, these 2 blowouts, but also just the embarrassing special teams showing, all the other stuff going around, the quarterback situation in flux. Like, you got to demonstrate that you can put together a week of preparation, beat a team you should beat, and just show some competence on the field.
Patriots punt returner had a 64-yarder last week.
He did.
Set up a touchdown.
Yeah. Well, look.
Directional punting.
Yeah, punting out of bounds.
Yeah, let's see all touchbacks and all fair catches. You could solve your problem with your specialists.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And look, I'm totally with both of you guys on like the Callahan and the transparency. And look, I really enjoy watching this press conference. I tend to learn something every time I watch it. All that's great. But I do think there's still an element of, Joe, to your point, this is a big moment for him. Like, as head coach, you got to come up with solutions along the way. And I get it. Like, their roster is not great. And they're in a spot right now as an organization where they're just not very good. And I understand all that. But you also, I think, as a head coach, you got to find a way to fight through it. You got to find a way to come up with solutions. And look, Mike Vrabel wasn't perfect. Mike Vrabel had his faults. Mike Vrabel could also come up with solutions when things looked pretty dire at times. We saw him do it time and time again. It's important, I think, for Brian Callahan to show at some point here he can do that, because there hadn't been any of that so far, at least in my opinion.
I don't think it's very common that a fan base is yearning for the fired coach. I mean, that's a good story for me to look back on. How often has that happened lately? I mean, Adam Gase was horrific, but I don't remember who was before Adam Gase. And Jets fans probably preferred who was before Adam Gase because Adam Gase was so bad. Are we there? I don't know. I mean, I think people like Brian Callahan personally, and they should. And he's far less abrasive than Mike Vrabel, which is part of why he was the guy. And you know, we've illustrated that a lot of coaches need, you know, to get into their second year to find their sea legs. But I think it's unquestionable that Mike Vrabel would be doing better with this roster, and this roster wouldn't look like it does. He wouldn't have done, you know, signed off on all the things that they did. He would have gone different directions with some of the things. But they'd be a better football team with Mike Vrabel now. Mike Vrabel with the spine of a good football team, patchworking the fringes, was a good football coach.
I will say, if we go back 6 years, I bet you after that 13-12 loss at Buffalo against a quarterback named Josh Allen who could barely throw a forward pass, there may have been a few Titans Twitter malarkey
maybe so
sentiments.
By the way,
yeah, no, you're right.
The coach before Adam Gase in New York, Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles, the head coach. There you go.
You know, Todd Bowles has gone on to a reasonable amount of success, but I'm sure in Tampa Bay it's not Bruce Arians they miss so much as his quarterback.
Yeah.
But Tampa Bay's done reasonably well post Brady. I think better than most people expected.
No doubt.
Thankful for the division being pulled.
There, well, there's that too. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. More of your thoughts on the Titans coming up next. One more segment with Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com with us, talking all things Tennessee Titans. Titans taking on the Patriots coming up on Sunday. Interesting to see what that crowd looks like on Sunday at Nissan Stadium. The weather should be great, so got that going for you.
Well, maybe some of those New Englanders had scheduled it early. I mean, they knew the Patriots weren't going to be good, but weekend in Nashville is always good.
Yeah.
So I've been surprised many games with many teams that I didn't think would travel, fill up those front rows on the visitor sidelines almost no matter what.
I'm looking forward to seeing it coming up on Sunday. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Jared from Mount Juliet. Jared, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
How's it going, guys?
What's up, man?
Good.
Hey, so to me, and I'm kind of surprised you hadn't hit on this morning, or maybe I missed it, but to me, the dumbest thing I saw with something I read with what Rand said is something to the tune of, unfortunately, God only makes so many good football players. I read that and just laughed, and I thought, well, why does God hate us? Because we can't seem to ever get any, especially at the right tackle position. But my faith level, as far as somebody mentioned, I don't want to talk about draft this early, but who has a lot of faith that we're actually going to hit on an early draft pick? If you look at Jake Locker, Marcus Mariota, Isaiah Wilson, I mean, you just could go on and on and on. But I'm a season ticket holder. Try to go faithfully. And somebody mentioned the cost investment. I mean, the time investment. If I leave my house a minute after 10:30, I'm late to kick off. You don't get home till 4:35. So it's just to see the product that we have and the lack of, I think, effort on our GM's part to, do more with local media. I don't like that. I think it should be, to me, it should be a priority. Why would you want to serve national media more so than local media when you need to put asses in the seats, so to speak? But enjoy your guys' show, and I'll just hang up and listen.
Thanks for calling, Jared. Appreciate it.
Well,
Jared,
there's no indication that he's talking to national media, though. Suspect off the record he's having conversations. In terms of God only made so many good football players. Again, he reframed that question to talk about what's available now,
right?
Which I don't think is what Nick was getting at or anybody's concerned about. We know there are no solutions for him to go get now. Questions about when players were available, what he got.
Yeah, I mean it's
when God's good football players were available.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and to his other point there, I mean, this is what we talked about. We've been talking about quarterback all show, and how long's too long to wait on your quarterback. Well, let's say you get through this season and it's clear, which I think it's leaning this direction, that you're going to have to go find another quarterback. The history of this organization tells you that it's hard to do that. It's hard to find the right one. It doesn't mean you give up. Doesn't mean you stop trying to draft a quarterback, because eventually you're going to have to draft a quarterback that hits and is your next guy. But like the idea that, well, don't worry, you can just get through this season, and then next year you draft your quarterback and Brian Callahan gets to pick his guy and you just go from there. Well, didn't work with Vince Young. Didn't work with Jake Locker. Didn't work with Marcus. And right now it's on track not to work with Will Levis. So, I don't know if it's a Titans DNA thing, but I do think it's an NFL at large thing of it's hard to find the answer at quarterback in the draft. Most of the time it doesn't work out.
Outside of the VY year, they've been lined up to draft a quarterback in bad quarterback drafts.
Yes.
So I'm with Joe. I'd bet against virtually everybody. But then when you're picking in years where it doesn't look like the crop is good, those odds get even worse, And obviously the single best scenario for them would be to connect themselves to the Manning family. But you can't manipulate your way into the right quarterback 2 years off. It's too far off, and it's too risky. You need the number one pick in 2026. I hate to have this conversation, but there's no way to guarantee yourself that.
Right.
Well, they're on their way, potentially. So, you know what we need to, and we talked about this earlier this week, PK, but I'm going to throw it to you. Like, what we really need, we as just a populace in Nashville, we as a media, a core in Nashville, is for Will Levis to play a good game and give us something different to talk about.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, even if it doesn't necessarily lead to anything, isn't all that consequential, just anything different from him than we've seen. And I do wonder if this reset, yes, he was actually hurt. This is not a conspiracy, but this reset, it turns out to be a reset. It turns out to allow him to miss 2 teams that would not have treated him very kindly. And I do wonder if maybe there's something more there. I know if most people have given up. I would still say, just as with Anthony Richardson, it still hasn't been a ton of games that we've seen him play. How about that for some sunshine?
Yeah, I mean that's the optimistic view of what you can hope for. But the Patriots are thinking, ooh, Will Levis.
Exactly.
Sure, hope he plays.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to see this guy out there.
Yeah, the conversation we're having about the Patriots is the same one they're having up there. I don't know how many wins are left on the schedule, but the Titans this week. That'll
I've
be fun.
tweeted out cards, letters, and gifts for Joe Rexrode in this difficult time as he faces likely surgery to repair knee damage suffered from walking up the stairs. Can be sent to him here with the Cumulus Media address. The general asks if they could send loose mints. I say only if they have a lot of lint.
Yes, make sure there's lint involved in that. PK, thank you, sir.
It's been a pleasure to be here. Don't block the box. Be sure to lock your locks. Go Yanks.
Jason, Big Joe coming up next. This is 102.5, 106.3 The Game.